You're about to listen to Shed, conversations about race on Martha's Vineyard, with your host, Eric Adams, a presentation of MVY Radio.
Conversations between people with different political beliefs have gotten harder and harder to have. Local Islander Jonathan Polly and I have managed to keep talking despite our differences and show that it is still possible, and have discovered we might have more in common than we originally thought. Hello, and welcome to Shed. I am your host, Eric Adams, and we have a bit of a special guest today. This is somebody who I've known for a while, probably close to 20 years.
Probably 20.
Yep. His name's Jonathan Polly. Welcome to the podcast, Jonathan.
Thank you.
And thanks for agreeing to be here. You know, we have guests from all kinds of different experiences and different areas of expertise, and I asked Jonathan to be a guest kind of on a whim, and the reason is that Jonathan and I have kind of been having a running conversation here and there, usually when people are not around, about politics in general, really a lot of topics around politics. And the reason I asked him to come in is because I realized, maybe like some of you, that I have really stopped wanting to have these conversations with people that don't feel like I do, didn't vote the way I voted, don't agree on the issues. And Jonathan and I don't agree on a lot of stuff, but we found a way to have conversation about it. And he's someone who I respect, someone who I like a lot. I was trying to think, you know, are we friends? Do you think we're friends?
I would qualify us as friends.
I would too.
Yeah.
You know, we don't hang out socially, but I see you sometimes twice a day. Jonathan works in an establishment on the island, and I'm a painting contractor, so we've seen each other a lot, and he's a great guy and always been very helpful.
If I may interject, I just feel as though I enjoy our conversations too, and there's some people that I won't bring up my feelings or situations in the world because I just don't want controversy or ridicule or, you know, insisting that their point is right, mine's wrong.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate talking with you because we can open doors, and I think that's the way it should be.
I totally agree. And one of the big problems, I think, in general, is that we've stopped talking to each other, and even more than that, we've really stopped listening to each other. I was able to listen to you and not feel defensive or threatened or belittled, and I hope you felt the same way.
I have.
A lot of our guests kind of think and feel like I do about topics. The name of the podcast is Shed Conversations About Race, and we tend to have guests that I think are all on the same page about social issues. So I thought, well, we should really try to include voices that don't necessarily feel like I do and may not agree with even the listeners. So I'm certainly not asking you to speak for everyone. You're just speaking for yourself. But before we dive into some of that, as long as we've known each other, like, I don't know that much about you. I know that you graduated high school on the Vineyard because my wife graduated either with you or right around you.
Yeah, she was a year younger.
You're younger. She'll always appreciate being younger. That'll be nice. So if you could just tell us how you got here and what keeps you here on the island.
Sure. Well, little background. I was born and raised till I was 13 in Winchester, Mass, near Boston. I have two sisters, one brother, older than me, so I was the baby. They went on their own when my mom and dad got divorced. My mother was interested in Eastern Star. She used to come down to the Vineyard. Like, they'd spend a weekend and they'd do sisterhood things.
What is Eastern Star?
So Eastern Stars is the woman's organization that's kind of equal to the Masonic Lodge, the Masons.
Yep.
And it's the women that meet and they do a lot of rituals and different things, and they would come down here. To make a long story short, we moved here in 1978, and I started going to school.
Were you happy about that when you moved here?
It's funny because in my graduation yearbook, I put under likes 6/27/78 and under dislikes 6/27/78 because that's the day I moved here. I loved it and I hated it. When I first moved here, I hated it. But after about 6 months of meeting everybody and feeling comfortable, I just fell in love with the island. So I grew up here, high school here, as you know, and I went to college for just a year, and then I married a girl, had a child with her shortly thereafter, and we got divorced again shortly thereafter, and I had custody of my son. So I felt a lot of like tied down to the island, but I never really wanted to live anywhere else. I just loved the air, the atmosphere here. I felt comfortable knowing things, so I just, basically grew up here.
Do you still love it?
I do, although I'm kind of thinking when I retire, I might want to move down south. I'm not sure, but we own a house here, so that's like my retirement plan, pretty much.
So I started coming as a summer kid in '76, so we were landed here around the same time. And I've certainly seen a lot of changes on the island over the years. I'm sure you have too. Can you tell me about the things that you feel like have changed, either for the better or the worse?
The changes that have occurred are knowing my community to not knowing anybody and feeling like we've alienated ourselves from our neighbors, our friends, the people we know. Like, I consider you a friend. I would be more than happy to have dinner with you, but we tend not to because we get so involved in other things. And that, I think, is the way the island is now. It just seems like kind of a money pit that the rich people tend to come to, and then we work for them. And it just seems like there's a lot of alienation.
So you think the popularity of the island and the socioeconomic status of a lot of the people that can afford to be here, particularly buy homes and spend a lot of time here, has changed the island, and not for the better?
I mean, I'm a huge fan of saying people have a right to buy where they want to. I don't like the idea of changing an entire landscape to facilitate their 12-bedroom home that they're going to live in for 2 weeks to 2 months a year. I just think that's crazy. But again, I have no say in that matter because people have the right and privilege to do what they can afford.
Sure. And also the other side of that is that it has created an economy for people like you and I to do pretty well. It creates a lot of business and entrepreneurship and sustains a lot of the labor force working on those big homes that are only occupied for a few weeks or a few months a year.
True.
So it's a mixed bag.
It is. It really is. But I do miss the camaraderie as when I was a kid. Seeing kids hanging out in the park and stuff. We don't do that anymore.
It's different. It feels different.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also been a big increase in the immigrant community here. We've always had immigrants here. I mean, forever. And we had a guest, Bo Van Riper, who's a historian at the Martha's Vineyard Museum, and he gave us a good history on the arrival and the contributions of the immigrant community. But I know that some folks feel squeezed by that population as well. Feel that at all?
When I was younger, there was a lot of Irish people here, and I didn't think much of it. And then it seemed like that sort of died down, and there was a lot of Jamaican population here, and that sort of died down. A lot of people lingered on, and then it became the Brazilian population. I love the culture of the Brazilians. I've learned a lot of Portuguese. I embraced a lot of Brazilian people. I have a lot of Brazilian friends. I think they're great people. I think that there's a lot, but I would never say go home, except for those that are, committing crimes.
Yeah.
So,
Which
it's tough.
it is tough. From what I understand, that's a very small percentage of the population, probably similar to what the native-born people, Americans here, is probably a similar, very small criminal population. I would think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I teach English as a second language
I did not know
my
that.
church on Sunday mornings. I just started doing it in May, and it was probably the wrong time of the year to begin it. So
Because we're so busy.
Yeah. A lot of people signed up and then realized they're not going to be able to make it. So we are redoing it again in September. And
Wow.
I love, and like a couple of the people that did come say, why are you doing this?
That was my next question.
My hands go up and I say, I don't know. I just want to give back to the community. I see the need. I see their frustration when they come in my store and
Yeah.
they have only a translation on their phone. And, I sense the frustration. And if they're willing to learn it, I'm willing to teach it.
Wow, that's amazing, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Did not know that about you. I've watched you, though, interacting with folks who struggle with English, and you've always been nothing but patient and kind to them and really try to help to understand them and help them to understand you. And I think it makes a huge difference when people come in, because I know that's got to be really difficult,
I put myself in their shoes. I can't imagine to be in Brazil and not know what I need or how to, share what I need. And I'm sure it's frustrating for them. So I just want to make it as comfortable as I can within reason. I do get frustrated when I've seen the same person there for the last 10 years and they still don't know English. And that's the person I want to
try to help,
touch and try to help. Yeah.
I always tell people when they are apologetic about their English not being great, I always tell them that it's a lot better than my Portuguese, which my Portuguese is really bad.
Right.
You would think after all this time I'd pick up more than just a few words. So if you ever start teaching a Portuguese class, let me know.
Okay. Right. I don't speak enough Portuguese. Eu falo pouco português.
So I wanted to get into a little bit of our political discussion, okay? And you can feel free to not answer any of these questions, but I was curious, could you tell us who you voted for in the last election?
I did vote for Donald Trump.
Yep. And I knew that. But and do you consider yourself part of MAGA, which is really, what his core base is?
So when I was growing up, my family was Republican. When I hit my probably 17 through 22 years old, I was very Democrat. And then my heart started changing, and I just realized that there's core fundamental purposes for me to turn Republican. And you asked me if I consider myself a MAGA Republican. I do not, and I'm not exactly sure what that term is, but I do believe in making America great, period. So if you want to say I'm a MAG Republican, okay.
Why not again?
I think that the setting up of this country was inspired by God. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints points to that fact in a lot of different ways, whereas we do work in the temples, and there's reference to our founding fathers coming to the Latter-day Saints when they were establishing the church and said thank you, because that's what this was set up for. So I am a firm believer that this country was set up not to destroy, and they do say that this country will be only destroyed from within, not from without. And that really saddens me that people, again, you and I talk like a great talk, and I don't feel threatened by you, but there's people out there that just want to destroy what I believe. I get put down. I tell, if you're Republican, you're stupid. And it's like, that's not constructive. I'm a huge believer in peaceful following, whatever it is, whether it's Jesus Christ, whether it's our president. I can't stand for inappropriate comments that are said, particularly by Donald Trump right now. But then on the other side, I can't stand for the country just getting run by special interests that are only in it for themselves. And that is, I feel as though that's what's destroying our country, is the special interest.
Do you not feel that's happening on both sides of the aisle?
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Sure.
So what makes you feel like, or felt like, Trump was the better option to eliminate special interests?
I feel as though the past president was really not the one that was empowered. So I don't know who it was that was, pulling the strings or running the show or anything, but things just happened that just seemed not appropriate for a president.
Can you give me an example?
I know you're going to ask me that.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I just was
No,
trying
I
to
know.
follow your thinking about
Yeah.
it. Because I would agree that special interests have ruined in some way the democratic process. The amount of money, particularly money that's unaccounted for, people can just donate, businesses can donate, huge sums of money, and they don't have to register or say where the money's coming from or what deals they may be hoping for once the person they support is in office, so dark money, as they say. I feel that is a problem within the system and not necessarily within either party.
But I believe that the parties should be conscientiously against making decisions for their personal benefit and make decisions for the country. And you can't make them do that because everybody can rationalize and say, well, I'm doing this because it's going to help this part of the country.
Do you feel like our current president is doing a good job of putting the country before his own personal interests or the interests of his allies, his close friends?
I'm going to say yes. And the reason why I'm going to say yes is because this is a guy that gets an incredible amount of trouble for something. He doesn't need to do this. He doesn't need to be president. It's not like he's doing it for his personal benefit, because there is no real personal benefit for him, I believe. And I don't know the whole story, so I can't really say for sure. But he can just make money and be fine and move on with his life. But I think that he sees something that needs to be fixed with this country, and he's trying to do it. Okay.
I mean, I would counter that there have been a number of things he's done to benefit himself. I mean, he's sold a lot of, gold sneakers and coins, and he's now passed laws to support the Bitcoin industry, which he's heavily invested in. But, I don't want to get lost in the details, because I think one of the good things about our conversations is that we don't get in a tit for tat on some of these things. You have the way you see it, and I see it differently, and it's all right. It's funny because I, like you, think that this is a great country. I sometimes say it's a great and terrible country. Great because of it's a democracy where people really have a say in what happens in their government. People really do have opportunities to change. What is a republic? You're right. Yeah. But it's a democratic republic, right?
Yes.
The terrible part is I feel like at times we could be doing so much more and be doing a better job and really sticking to the principles that are outlined in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, that we hold ourselves up to be, a beacon of how a country can be governed and how people can live, but that we consistently fall short, which I'm sure, all countries struggle with that. Is there anything that would make you stop supporting him as president? Like, is there a line where he could cross where you'd say, you know what, this is just more than I bargained for. This isn't what he campaigned on. These aren't the promises that he made. Because he made a lot of promises. I mean, he said, day one, I'm going to end the war in Gaza. Day one, I'm going to end, what's happening in Ukraine. Day one, the cost of eggs is going to come down. And none of that's happened so far.
each president is in a different circumstance.
Okay.
When 9/11 happened, I mean, I don't know if I'm not a conspiracy theorist,
Mm-hmm.
but when that happened, America's first reaction is we're going to make them pay whoever did this.
Mm-hmm.
And, ultimately, I guess we did, but I don't really think the right people may have paid. Doesn't mean that we should go to war with somebody, but I'm a huge fan of protecting United States, whether it's interests here or abroad.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to open the door so that there's wars in America. And I think right now there are wars in America because of the borders being opened up. There's so much going on with drug cartels and gangs. So I'm thankful that that's getting cleaned up. So that's the other thing, as we were talking about before, immigration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see the sweet young lady walking down the street have to worry about looking behind her back to make sure that ICE isn't coming to take her away. But, if there's a child molester or a murderer or a gang member, please do take them away because, there's my safety and my children's safety is number one concern for me. So when that doesn't happen, I would have to say, maybe a president should be kicked out of office.
When that doesn't happen. As some people know, ICE showed up on the island, masked, armed, pulling people out of cars. They arrested, I think, 20 people on the island. From what I understand, 2 of those people had criminal convictions and were wanted in some way. The other 18, from what I understand, were here in what they're calling illegally. So they came into the country. We just interviewed somebody recently. He came in when he got to the border. He turned himself into Border Patrol. They gave him a court date, which he made. They then told him he needed to check in with ICE once a year. Twice was in person for the first 2 years, and then after that it was through email, which he did. And he's now someone that a lot of people would consider being illegal. So I was just wondering, because you do have close ties to the Brazilian community, how did it feel for you that day or those days when ICE was here in the way that they were here?
I didn't particularly like how they came to the island and, kind of threatened the existence of basically all the illegal aliens here. I'm a fan of going to someone's house and saying, hey, you're out of here. You're a drug dealer or something like that. Of course, if they're doing crimes that are felonies, of course they should be pulled out of here. They should be taken away. I do realize that just being here would consider them a misdemeanor criminal, but I don't think that should be a valid reason to send them away.
So bigger picture, because we're talking locally, are you aware of kind of how ICE has been enforcing detain people and deport them, going to job sites, pulling people out of Home Depot, walking into restaurants, arresting people working in kitchens? These are not people that were wanted for anything. They're just people that, as you said, came into the country illegally, but also have followed the rules since they've been here. I just saw a story last night. There was a guy who's lived here for 30 years. He had 3 sons, all who are serving as Marines. This was out in, I believe it was California. I might have that wrong. And he's a landscaper, and he was cutting grass, and ICE threw him down on the ground, dislocated his shoulder, dragged him off to prison. And not sure what's going to happen with him yet. But those are the kind of things that I have been seeing and reading about. Are you aware of that?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Are you aware of, in general, that there's kind of mass deportations going on around the country?
I knew there's been mass deportations. I was under the impression, I remember the first one that I heard was that guy in Boston that was a huge drug dealer in Boston. And that was a big bust for ICE. And I thought, great. That's awesome. Get them off the street. And unfortunately, there's some residual people. I actually had a guy come in my store that was saying, Jonathan, I hate Trump. And I'm just curious. I said, why? And he says, because he's a Brazilian, he's taken all my people. And, I said, well, have you been directly affected? He says, no. And I said, I believe, and this is like right when I did this, I said, I believe they're looking for drug dealers, child molesters, murderers, things like that. And I said, so I don't think you're one of them, are you? And he's like, no. He says, but, what if somebody I live with, gets arrested, dragged out of my house? I could be dragged out too. And I said, well, then you should probably think of who you're living with. If you're living with one of those people, I would just avoid that.
The idea of arresting 20 people to find the 2 criminals and that everybody gets deported seems wrong. And it also doesn't seem like what Trump campaigned on. I mean, the idea was he was going to do mass deportation, the biggest deportation we've ever seen. But it was really going to focus on people that had broken the law. So,
do you realize that at least the last 10 presidents have said that same thing?
I do, and I realized that President Obama deported more folks than any president, I think, in history. And what's clear to me is that this country has an immigration problem. We've never been able to set, for the last 30, 40 years, any kind of real policy that we could stick to that was effective. My feeling is, and tell me what you think about this, we've allowed immigration to happen in the way it has because we need immigrant labor. We depend on it. And that if you went after the employers, the people that were employing and paying money to these folks, if you went after the people that were renting their homes to them, it seems hypocritical in some ways because both you and I are in businesses where we make a lot of money working with immigrants. So it seems hypocritical in some ways because that makes us part of the problem. If you feel like we want to get, these mass deportations going, that we are in some ways supporting the broken immigration system. What do you think about that?
You are right. I am hypocritical in that. I don't want to see huge mass deportations, but the floodgates opened 5 years ago, just allowing so many people to come in the country. I feel like it was taxing already overburdened system, but I don't know what the magic number would be to get rid of, to have them go back to their own country. I do believe that there's a proper way to come into the United States. And like you said, it's a broken system, definitely. I know a couple that were from England, and they caretook a house on Chappaquiddick, and they would have to leave every 5 months, 25 days, and go back to England, spend a month, I don't know what the rules were, but spend a month or two there, and then come back. And they applied for dual citizenship, and over the course of 10 years, they never got it. To me, that is a broken system. They tried to do it right. They ended up going back to England and said, forget it. It's not worth the hassle. Yet there's people that can walk over the border, and I'm not trying to simplify it. They can walk over the border, and they get handed apparently cell phones, healthcare, EBT cards. I haven't experienced that, but that's what I've heard. And, it's just, that is part of a broken system. So it does need to be fixed. Now, I'm not sure if it's Australia or New Zealand, but you cannot go into that country without having enough money for your week, 2 week, 3 week stay, however long it was. And then they ask you when you're leaving. If you don't have enough money to support yourself while you're there, you're gone. And they don't tolerate illegal entry. So you cannot work there unless, they will, I think, import people to work there when needed. I don't know if that's a solution, but that sounds like a better solution than opening the floodgates and then closing them. Then opening the floodgates and then closing them.
I wrestle with those kind of questions because I do want a system that works for everyone, that benefits people that really want to be here, need to be here, particularly people that are fleeing, violence, political violence, gang-related violence, extreme poverty where there are just no opportunities. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but if I was in a country where my kids were starving and I couldn't make a living and I knew that I could walk into a country and get a job and start to support my family and maybe, save them in some ways, even if it wasn't legal, I think I would probably do it. I would try to do it the legal way. The immigrants that I know have all tried to do it the legal way. They've consistently followed up with the things that are asked of them, sending in paperwork, getting tax identification numbers, all the things that are asked of them. So I feel like in some ways they're being punished for our broken system that we benefit from, because lots of us are benefiting from, not just on the island. I mean, there's whole industries, the farming industries out in the Southwest, they'd stop functioning.
Right. And spending a lot of money on lawyers too, to be able to get disappointed and discouraged every time they come back and say, okay, one more form, fill this out. Yeah, give me another $1,000 and we'll file this. It just gets ridiculous.
It does. It's really hard. I want to switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
I have wondered how it feels for you as someone who identifies himself as a more conservative person, a Republican, how it feels living in a community that is overwhelmingly liberal for the most part and democratic. Is that ever difficult for you?
Yes. Not that I will jump up and down and say, oh, this is me, if I was to live in Ohio or some, mid-centrist state. But yeah, I just try to keep my opinions to myself, and I'll hear somebody make a comment that I definitely disagree with, and I'll just walk away and not add to the comment. And there's so many people. I love the people. I have friends that think all different ways, and it's okay, because it really doesn't matter which political side you're on. I feel like we're all children of a God that loves each and every one of us, and that has made us individuals that is like him, which is amazing to me how many different people there are in the world. Everybody's different. Nobody looks the same. Nobody may think exactly the same. Different experiences, yet we're all children of a loving Heavenly Father, which to me makes it feel like we're, number one, our differences are our similarities, because we are all children of God. From that, you can divide it up from race, culture, experiences, political sentiment. But it really, in the scheme of things, when we meet for church, we don't talk politics. We don't talk politics at all, because that's not what we're there for. We're there to worship our Savior. And to me, that's the most important thing. So once we go from there, then like you and I, we interact all the time at the store, and it's a very social, agreeable situation, and I really appreciate that. But there's other people that I just can't say anything to, because I don't want to offend them or feel like they're offending me. But I can just think different and walk away, and it's okay.
One of the reasons I like living here, there's lots of them, but one of them is because I do feel like it's a very open, liberal, accepting community. And I don't necessarily feel that when I go other places. I'm from Pennsylvania, and in Montgomery County, it's very 50-50, but I feel like I'm not comfortable there sometimes. There's a big Trump presence, which feels angry at times. It's not just like, hey, we really love Trump. It's like, hey, we really don't like you, And I think that's just a product of where we are as a country. It used to be that you could disagree with someone about their political views, about how they feel socially, but we wouldn't demonize that person.
No.
And I'm guilty of it. I find myself feeling very negatively for the most part about people who support our current president. That's why it was really good for me, Jonathan, to be able to have someone like you that challenges that, because it would be really easy for me to say they're all like that. But I don't know a lot of people that voted for Trump. The truth is, there was a few people that I was friends with, and we just don't really talk anymore, unfortunately. I think it was a mutual decision, It just became a little too painful because, honestly, it's more than just the politics of it. It speaks to deeper issues, the things that are really important to me. My values, in a way, I just think are not the same as some of the people that maybe support the current administration. And I just heard you mention, and I've heard you talk before about how important your values are that are fundamentally seem to be based in your faith. And I wondered, do you find your personal values reflected in the current administration? And if not, how do you reconcile that conflict?
I have always said that I don't have to like the president, but what they are representing is what I support. I wouldn't want Donald Trump over for dinner. I probably embarrass me, or I might not feel comfortable, but because it's a president, I wouldn't really feel comfortable with anybody, any president coming over my house. But I consider myself a conservative more than a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
And that being said, I'm anti-abortion, which means does not mean that I'm going to stand outside an abortion clinic with posters and signs and say, you're a loser, down with you, bad choice, because we love all our brothers and sisters. I believe in being fiscally conservative. We should not be spending our money. I love the fact that Elon Musk was looking for ways to cut money that should not be spent. Might have gone overboard. I don't know. I'm not in the situation to judge or to see. Everybody, no matter what you do in government, they talk about cutting spending, but the minute Elon Musk's find things to cut, he's the evil one. So it's always been that, we want good government, but nobody wants to work at doing that. So getting back to what you said, though, my values are basically peace, understanding, and having compassion for the other side. I'll say the left-wing side. It's great that we should be able to, as you said, without feeling uncomfortable, debate back and forth and be able to say, okay, shake hands, walk away, we'll meet tomorrow, we'll do the same thing. And that's what government should be like. And now it's just so divisive. And that's just nothing that I want to be part of. I don't want to be divisive with anybody that I'm going to talk to. And I respect your opinion. Everybody has their own opinion. I respect that. I'm not trying to sit there and say, yeah, but this happened, so you should really hate this person because of that. If you can pull out the good points and make that work, then we would all just get along. It would be very peaceable. But once we contention's of the devil. Why do we need to argue and be like that? Because all we're doing is enabling the Satan in our lives.
So there's parts of that I really agree with. I'm not a religious guy. I didn't grow up that way, and I never read the Bible, so I don't feel like I can speak with any real authority about
It's a good book.
Christ. It's a good book. It's a bestseller.
Yeah.
But the things I do know that seem to be central to Christianity are often central to a lot of faiths, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that they talk about really taking care of the most vulnerable of us. That Christ was in the street with the poor and the destitute and the prostitutes, then those are the people that he tended to try